Yibunei HaMikdash Hirtzio inte malai Okor les ozman.
Welcome to our channel. In this video, Rabbi Kolakowski will be discussing some basic concepts about Jewish liturgical prayer, with discussion about the Shmona Esrei, or Amida prayer, with emphasis on the afternoon prayer known as Minchah. We hope this to be the first in a series of videos about Jewish prayer, as well as about Jewish religious law in general. Let's watch.
All right, Bruchim Abayim, welcome everyone. I've received a request to make a video about the prayer of Minchah, which is the afternoon prayer. To really understand this prayer, we really have to understand the context of the other two, or sometimes three, or actually sometimes four prayers that are recited in our liturgy. So on a normal weekday, we have three prayers every day. The morning prayer, which is called Shacharis, or Shacharit. The afternoon prayer, which is the discussion of this video, which is called Mincha. And the evening prayer, which is called Mariv or Arvit. On days when an additional sacrifice was offered, there is an additional prayer called Musaf, which means additional. And one day a year, we have a fifth prayer, which is called Ne'ilah, which means closing, like the closing of the gates. And that is on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The essential formula of the prayers follow as an essential liturgical formula. And the highlight of each of these services is called either the Shmona Esrei or the Amida. And sometimes it's simply called Tefillah, the prayer, because it is the prayer par excellence. The name that we find for this prayer in the Talmud is Shmona Esrei, which means 18. This is a reference to the 18 blessings of the Shmona Esrei prayer. The fact of the matter is that for around 2,000 years, there have been 19 blessings in this prayer. That shows how traditional Jewish people are, that we still call something Shmona Esrei 18, even after a 19th blessing has been added for 2,000 years. In the Zohar, which is the book of the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, this prayer is called Amidah. And many people prefer this term because we do not always have 18 or actually 19 blessings in the prayer. This is particularly so on the Sabbath and the holidays, and also the Musaf prayer. Generally, on Sabbath and holidays and the Musaf prayer, except the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, there are 7 blessings. And actually, according to the Talmud, one could do what is called Me'ein Shmona Esrei, that the middle blessings, of which there are actually 19, so if you subtract 6, it leaves 13, those 13 blessings can be formulated into one blessing that covers all of the things that are in those 13. And there is an opinion that that is sufficient. Generally, we say that this should only be relied on in a time of great need. However, if someone finds difficulty praying, and it takes a long time to recite all 19 blessings, I would say that particularly someone who is new to Judaism is better to recite the short version, which is only 7 blessings, than to not pray at all. However, there is a question about this practice in the winter time, of which is something we can discuss at another time. So, as we said, the essential part of all 3 prayers is this Shmona Esrei or Amidah prayer. By the morning service, there's a lot more before and after that essential Amidah prayer. By the evening service, there's also a little bit more than there is in the afternoon service. When praying alone, essentially, the afternoon service would be the shortest of the 3 daily services. And even when praying publicly, it really is not that long of a service. The rabbis tell us that the Minchah prayer is one of the most important prayers. Let's watch a video from Rabbi Fishbane, my rabbi, who discusses some of this idea.
Amar Chalboy. Shukran brings out a Gemara. Amar Chalboy. Ma'olam yizar adam b'tfilas mincha. A person should be very diligent and very careful, extreme caution to make sure to daven mincha. Shahari Eliyahu Hanavi v'nei elu b'tfilas mincha. Because Eliyahu Hanavi, when he was misfoul, so he this feeling that the Rebbe Shalom that touched the responsive chord, that prayer which touched the responsive chord that was answered, was received by the Rebbe Shalom, was by Minchah. In Shulchan Aruch, so the portion, the commentaries explain, take time to give us the fundamentals, the basic reasons behind what's so important, special about Minchah. It's because of the timing. Minchah is with the time frame of Minchah is from midday, from Chatzos, from midday until sunset. And that's usually when a person is in the midst of all of his activities, as opposed to the morning prayers to Shacharis, and the evening prayers. Shacharis, the morning prayer, is you daven before the day begins. You can begin davening when the sun begins by Nes, when the sun begins first appears on the horizon. So before your activities begin, before you're involved in meetings and in conferences and in business deals and all sorts of engagements, so you're not tearing your way from something. So you can daven Shacharis. Ma'ariv, the evening service, is the same, also the same time frame. It's after sunset, when the stars come out, all night long. So all of your daily activities are completed, and now you have time to sit down, and you're not running out with appointments, with schedules, with meetings, with conferences at that time of night. So you're not tearing away from something. It's in order for somebody to tear themselves away from conferences and from business deals and from investments and from lucrative investments and from making money, so you're setting aside something like that in order to serve the Rebbe Shalom. That requires strength of character and faith. Emunah b'tachon. It requires faith that the koyach v'yasmiyodi, that not everything is from our own doing. If we won't make this appointment, the Rebbe Shalom will see that we should have it. He'll be marshaled. He'll repay us in some other way. He'll be there. He'll be there for us. These gains will be there for us to get anyway. There was a gentleman who had habitually, he was late for work. So one day the boss calls him in on the carpet. He says to him, Arthur, he says, if this continues one more time, he says, you'll have to, I'm sorry to tell you, it hurts me, but you'll have to look for a job somewhere else. So he wants to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Takes all sorts of precautionary measures. He sets the alarm, he sets 2 alarms, and he makes sure to get up 45 minutes earlier, that no matter what takes place, he shouldn't be late for work. And everything's going according to schedule. And he's out of the house in ample time to make it work. He's in the car, puts the key in the ignition, turns his car, starter, and he's on his way. When he gets close to the place of business, he's looking for, there's traffic, and he's looking for a parking space. And he's going to Hakovis, he's circling around, and the clock keeps ticking away. And here, my goodness gracious, his livelihood's at stake. So he turns his eyes heavenward. He said, Rabbi, he said, please help me find a parking space. If you help me find a parking space, he says, I'll devote another 2 hours a day to learning. I'll give another 10% of my earnings for charity. I'll be a greater human being. I'll be nicer to my wife. He's all sorts to my neighbors. I'll be ready to answer any kind of chesed call. And then all of a sudden the parking place opens up. He said, buddy, son, the deal is up. Forget about it. And when I've been talking, this is what stands the Jew out of the side from everything else.
As we saw from Rabbi Fishbane, just to reiterate the teaching that he shared, Elijah the prophet was answered during the prayer of Minchah. The reason for this, some explain, is as follows. There is common sense to pray a morning prayer when you wake up in the morning, and an evening prayer before you go to sleep. We know even in almost all cultures, it is common that people who pray will pray in the morning when waking up and at night before going to sleep. The question is, to take time in the middle of the day to pray, that demonstrates a greater amount of devotion. And so that is why this prayer is so special. And the word mincha actually means a gift. And one of the sacrifices in the temple was called the mincha, and that was the meal sacrifice, the flour sacrifice, was called mincha. That is the most treasured sacrifice because it was brought by poor people. And so their whole soul was given into that. A wealthy person could bring a bull or a sheep or a goat as a sacrifice, and even though those are expensive animals, it might only be a small fraction of the wealthy man's wealth. But a poor person who might not have anything and buys a little bit of flour that only costs a few cents, that might be a greater amount of that person's wealth, and so and assets, of that person's assets, and so therefore it is more valuable. The Mincha prayer consists of 5 parts. Of those 5, at least 2 are optional, and possibly a third. But we will go through what those parts are. The first part of the Mincha service is the korbanot, the sacrifices. The prophet Hosea says, Unashalma farim svaseno, that the offerings of our lips will come in the place of bulls. And so therefore today, that we lack a temple, we make up for the lack of the sacrifices by reciting the passages from the Torah, from the Scripture, from the Bible, and from the Talmud that describe the sacrifices. This makes a lot of sense, because before anyone can do any mitzvah, any precept of our religion, one must first study this precept, of which there is a commandment of Talmud Torah, there's a commandment of studying Torah, and we say that study is greater than the deed because study brings us to the deed. Now, if one studies and realizes that one is unable to perform this deed, he has nonetheless done the most that he could by studying it. And so therefore, by reciting the liturgy of the sacrifices, it is considered as if we offered those sacrifices. In the Western Rite, which is known as Nusach Ashkenaz, it is uncommon to recite the sacrifices before the Minchah prayer. And many people also skip the sacrifices before the morning prayer. However, generally, in Ashkenazic prayer books, the Western Rite, the sacrifices will only be printed by the morning service and not by the afternoon service. The Eastern Rite, followed by Sephardic Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, Yemenite Jews, and Hasidic Jews, is that the korbanot, the sacrifices, are recited before the Minchah prayer as well, but in some communities it is also skipped. The next part of the Minchah prayer is Ashrei. Ashrei consists of 2 verses that are recited before Psalm 145, and then Psalm 145, and then another verse, all from the Psalms. Psalm 145 forms an acrostic that contains verses that begin with each of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet except for Nun. However, the Nun does appear in the verse that has letter Samech. Our sages teach that anyone who recites Ashrei, including Psalm 145, is assured a place in the world to come. That if one recites this 3 times a day. In the Shachris prayer, it is recited in the beginning, earlier, before the Shemona Esrei, and actually before the Shema, and again after the Shemona Esrei. And then by Mincha, except for when we recite Ne'ilah, Ashrei is recited before Mincha. On Yom Kippur, Ashrei is recited before Ne'ilah instead of before Mincha. On fast days and Sabbath afternoons, we also read the Torah on during the Mincha prayer, when the Mincha prayer is offered in public. And so this Torah reading would be after Ashrei and before the Shemona Esrei. When there is a public prayer, after Ashrei there is the half Kaddish, which is a doxology prayer. And again, when the Torah is read, there is another Kaddish, half Kaddish. After Ashrei, or when praying with a minyan after the Kaddish, the Shemona Esrei prayer is recited. Generally, it is recited quietly first, if there is a minyan, and then the person leading prayers will recite the Shemona Esrei again, in order to fulfill for those who are unable to recite it, his or herself. When it is recited publicly and repeated, there is also the Kedusha, both by Shachris and by Mincha, as well as by Musaf and Ne'ilah. The Kedusha prayer contains verses of which we say that the angels recite. And so when we are praying publicly with a minyan, we are able to recite these verses together with the angels. This is not recited when praying alone. As we said, the Shemona Esrei prayer is recited in a whisper. It is important to move one's lips while reciting the Shemona Esrei or Amidah prayer, and really all prayers. This is because our sages say that the movement of the lips is counted as a deed. Judaism is a religion of deed. And so just meditating in one's mind, one cannot fulfill the obligation of prayer. There are other obligations and mitzvos that one can perform with the mind, and the meditation of the mind should be included together with the recitation of the lips. But we find proofs from the Bible, for example, the prayer of Hannah and others, that the prayer should be recited with lips moving, and additionally, one should recite the prayers in a whisper, because God can hear the prayer, no matter what, whether we recite it out loud or quietly. And the point of the prayer is not for God to hear it, but for us to hear it. And when it's a whisper, there's more of an intimate connection. The Kabbalists also explain that we need to perform deeds in order to rectify our body, not just our soul. And so that's why it's important to move our lips. In the Amidah prayer, there are 4 places to bow. The beginning and end of the first blessing. When we say Baruch, we bend the knees, blessed. When we say Atah, art thou, we bow. And then before we say God's name, Hashem, we stand up again. That is by the beginning of the first blessing and the end of the first blessing, in which we mentioned the patriarchs. And then the penultimate blessing of Modim, the Thanksgiving blessing, we bow without bending the knee when we say Modim, we offer thanksgiving. And then at the end, blessed art thou, O Lord, Baruch Atu Hashem, again we bend the knee, bow, and rise up before saying God's name. We do not do this by any other blessings. Some people believe that that's a very pious thing to do, but it's actually considered an arrogant thing to do, because these blessings are, because, we'll go back, it's an arrogant thing to do because only the high priest did that, and the king would bow for the entire prayer. Because they were lofty people, they had to exhibit extra humility. But regular people cannot exhibit extra humility in that way. We'll continue later and talk more about this. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. We'll see you later.
We hope you enjoyed this content. This channel has over 5,000 videos, including Torah commentary, podcasts, footage of Jewish and historical events, and much more. We are sure you will find more videos you will enjoy. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button, and comment. Rabbi Kolakowski often makes videos based on questions in the comment section, so you might have a video made just for you. By helping this channel grow, you are helping to spread Torah. God bless.
Yibnei HaMikdash, Hirtzia in the Mala.